Okay, Chair Allen, it looks like we are ready to go. We are live streaming on YouTube and our website as well. We have 10 people in attendance right now, and I just want to remind the public that should you wish to speak, you can use the raise hand feature when the chair calls on you for the portion where the public gets to speak to an item, and we will call on you. If you are calling in from a telephone and you wish to speak, press *9, and that will use the raise hand feature, and you will be called upon in sequence. For the consultants that we have that are presenting, Kristen Rennie and Christine Loft, when it comes time for you to present, we will transfer you over to be a panelist so that your video can be shown at the same time. Anybody else that is speaking, it will be audio only. Okay, Chair Allen.
All right, thank you, Raylene. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first virtual planning meeting. We've got 7 files this evening, so we should be experts by the time we get to the last file. So I'll call this meeting to order, and I'll ask if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest from any of the members. If I don't see any hands, if anything should arise, you can let me know then. All right. Okay. This public meeting was called under Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, concerning 7 proposed zoning bylaw amendments to bylaw 2004-50, and 1 official plan amendment to the 2017 Grey Highlands official plan. Any person or public body is entitled to attend the public meeting and make written or oral submissions in support of or in opposition to any of the proposed amendments. Written comments should be submitted to the clerk, Raylene Martel. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of Grey Highlands before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of council of the municipality of Grey Highlands to the local planning appeal tribunal. And in addition, they may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Persons wishing to speak to these applications have registered prior to the meeting. It is important to note that if you wish to be mailed a notice of the passage of the bylaw and or notice of decision, and you do not live within 120 meters of the subject property, you must provide your request in writing to the planning department of the municipality of Grey Highlands. The sign-in sheet, which we aren't doing tonight, does not represent your written request. A guideline sheet is available upon request. So the first zoning bylaw amendment is file number Z21 2020. The registered owner is Alexandra Gott, and the agent is Christine Loft of Loft Planning Incorporated. The legal description is part lot 14, concession 9, OSPREY, as in GS 109017, lying south of part 1 and 2, 16R 8285, part road allowance between concession 8 and concession 9, OSPREY, as in R 499709, ST OP 11604, R 487247, Municipality of Grey Highlands. And the civic address is 428-167 8th Concession A. The notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on May 5th, 2020 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. I will now ask for our planner to review the purpose and effect of the proposed bylaw and advise of any comments received. Michael?
Good evening, everyone. The purpose of this application is to amend the municipality zoning bylaw to permit and regulate the addition of an on-farm diversified use, which includes agritourism and specifically a special events venue on the subject lands. A portion of the lands, including the existing barn structure, will be utilized for the purpose of seasonal special events, which shall include the holding of assembly of people for the purposes of weddings, parties, educational events, business retreats, and other similar gatherings. The effect of the zoning, or the exact wording of the zoning amendment, would be to amend Schedule A6 of the zoning bylaw from restricted agricultural A2, development D, hazard H, and those three zones, to a restricted agricultural A2, development D, and hazard H, and restricted agricultural A2 386. The A2 386 is an exception that will permit and define an additional permitted use being a special event venue and implement zoning provisions as follows. The area would be limited to 0.8 hectares. There'd be a maximum number of guests of 195 per event. Events to be held between May 1st and October 31st annually. Weekend hours of operation, so from Friday and Saturday, would end at 1 a.m. and weekday hours of operation, so Sunday through Thursday, would end at midnight at 12 a.m. Exceptions to the noise requirements for the hours operations will be required. There'd be 57 parking spaces provided, and the existing building as of the date of this passage of the bylaw would be deemed to comply. Some other consideration to look at in terms of background: the subject lands are known as 428167 8th Concession A. The lands have a total lot area of 39.6 hectares and a lot frontage of 398 meters. The lands are comprised of mostly agricultural lands and some woodlands. A building cluster comprised of a dwelling, a barn, and sheds is located in the southern portion of the property adjacent to the 8th Concession A. The proposed special events venue and the associated zoning will be located in that area, and the events venue would be focused on the existing barn. In terms of comments received to date, let me get through my report down to that. And these are the summary of the comments received from the following departments, agencies, and residents. The County of Grey Planning and Development Services Department provided comments on April 16th, 2020. And they note that provided positive comments are received from the local conservation authority and no development is intended to take place within the hazard lands, county planning staff have no concerns. The Grey Sauble Conservation Authority provided comments on May 20th, 2020, and they said that their office generally has no objection to the subject proposal as it is not anticipated to negatively impact their regulated area, natural hazard, and/or significant natural heritage features. However, the Conservation Authority recommends that should the landowner encounter bobolink or eastern meadow larks, which are a rare and endangered species, that they should contact the Ministry of Conservation, Environment, Parks for any applicable requirements. The Municipality of Greyhound's Building Department provided comments on April 27th, noting that the applicant is to be advised that in addition to the Southwind's engineering report, building services will require a full structural assessment of the farm building, the barn, to permit the change of use from a farm building of low human occupancy to an A2 occupancy or high human occupancy. And this will include, but not be limited to, verification of a minimum of 150 wind and snow load design verification, confirmation that the floor system can support a minimum occupant load of 4.8 kilopascals, and approval will also be required from the Electrical Safety Authority for all electrical systems associated with the building. A building permit will be required for the change of use. The Greyhounds Fire Department provided comments on April 27th as follows. Fire and Emergency Services concurs with the comments of the Building Department regarding the building change of use requirements. The building will need to conform to all of the requirements under the Ontario Fire Code for an assembly occupancy. Most concerns have been addressed in the engineer's report, engineered by the report, but occupant load will need to be determined by the fire department, which would involve a site visit prior to occupancy. Assembly occupancy will require a fire safety plan. The new driveway will need to be designed to current Ontario Building Code specifications for firefighting access. Comments were also received from Erin Boynton-Seeley on May 14th. And just to summarize, Mrs. Boynton-Seeley notes concerns with noise and neighborhood impacts resulting from special events occurring at the special events venue. Comments were also received by Mrs. Hale on, just pulling that up now, on May 20th. These comments were received after I wrote the report, but in time for this meeting, so I can summarize those. The Hales have requested confirmation of the following. They want to know what measures are currently in place or will be put in place to manage noise levels, crowds, traffic, and parking. What does the municipality consider to be reasonable in terms of time restrictions on noise levels? And they've also asked that we confirm that the zoning amendment is only for the 0.8 hectares indicated on the map, and that the rest of the property remains zoned for agricultural use. In terms of the third point, that's correct. Only the 0.8 hectares, which includes the barn and the dwelling and surrounding areas, is being zoned for the use. Remaining lands will remain in agricultural use. In terms of the other comments regarding noise levels, crowds, traffic, and parking, and time restrictions on noise levels, those will have to be addressed through more research with staff and the applicants. Mr. Chair, those are the extent of the comments received and the proposed zoning amendment as written.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Are there any questions or comments from council for the planner? Kathy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things on the report. The house that's shown on if you look at the lot outline, there's a little rectangle that's cut out, and the letter from Mrs. Boynton-Seeley refers to a house, and I'm wondering if that references to the house that's shown on the parcel, or is it referring to that little part that's cut out on the lot line?
I see you, Mr. Chair. I'm just getting to the overall mapping and her comments as well. So yes, if you look on, I guess it'd be page 8 of 48, Madam Clerk, it shows an overall venue of the map showing the overall property, and the subject property is highlighted in yellow, and there's a little bit of a chunk cut out of it for another house. So let me just bear with me as I move to Mrs. Boynton's comments. Mrs. Boynton, actually, her property is across the gorge from that property.
Yeah, I think she was 416 meters away, she said, so it definitely wouldn't be that house.
Her property is actually on the, I guess it'd be considered to be the east side of Feversham.
So my question was more about, she had some concerns about a house being used as potentially for Airbnb. Is she referring to the house that's actually
Oh,
included in within the lot, within the parcel, or is it? I just wasn't clear.
yes, and my apologies. Through Mr. Chair, I believe it is the house that is part of the application itself.
Okay, thank you.
That's how I took it also.
Okay, thank you for that. Just one other question. On page 14, the county says that they recommend deferral of the application until such time as further details are provided, which doesn't really match up with the summary of the county's remarks. But then, Michael, you made some allusion to the fact that staff would need more research on crowds, noise, etc., some of those details. Has there been any change from that position of the counties that's there as part of the May 13th, dated May 13th, 2020?
Through Mr. Chair, no, the county is still looking for deferral until more additional information is brought forward. Municipal staff have referred the Southwinds engineering report to RJ Burnside's, our consulting engineer, for review. And we have not yet received comments back from our consulting engineer. So we won't be moving forward with certainly bringing this matter to council until we have confirmation from our consulting engineer and county and others that all matters have been addressed.
Thank you for that.
All right. Anybody else have any questions for the planner? I can't see anybody.
Sorry, there was one more.
Okay, Kat.
Just wondering if transportation had submitted any comments on this application.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I did speak to our Director of Transportation and Environmental Services, and he has not provided formal comments yet. He's waiting to hear what comments come back from our consulting engineer regarding the access points and potential impacts on traffic before he finalizes his comments.
Thank you.
Okay. Raylene, if you could take the report down, please. Thank you. Any other questions for the planner? Danielle?
Yes, thank you through you, the chair, to our Director of Planning. I noticed that and I don't remember the exact numbers, but there's parking for, I'm going to say something, it was like 56, but the max capacity of the place was 195 or something there. I was wondering if you could, pardon me, comment if that is anything that we should be worried about.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Valaquette. I believe the consulting planner is available for comments as well. Certainly there is a range in the available parking versus occupancy of the special events venue. There is quite a range, to be honest. And when you think about, is everybody going to carpool? No, perhaps not. But I think that's one of the things perhaps our consulting planner can provide, or sorry, the applicant's consulting planner can provide some more information on.
Yeah, so we'll have the planner for the applicant respond in a few moments. Any other questions for the planner? No, I had three, but Deputy Mayor Desai.
Thank you, Chair Allen. One question I do have for the planner is if he has an approximate distance on the setback of the barn from the roadway.
And through you, Mr. Chair, let me see if I can find that. Bear with me as I scroll down. It's my understanding that the barn is somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 meters from the road, but I'm trying to zoom in on that. And I apologize, I'm having some difficulty getting to that level of magnification here, but
Can I ask a follow-up, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
So would it be one of the concerns we've heard is with regards to the noise levels coming out of the property? Would it be possible for us to have a buffer of trees, say, to prevent the noise sort of overwhelming beyond the property?
Michael?
thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, our planners did note that the barn is approximately 70 meters from the road. And with that, there certainly is room for any sort of vegetative buffering or berming, something like that. This application will also have to go through site plan approval. And that's when we can certainly capture the details and nuances of any of those berms. As well, we can include those sort of recommendations, requirement, and specifics in the zoning bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So yes, I had three questions. Two of them have been asked and answered. The last one, just clarification on page 2 of the report, number 8, it says existing building as of the date of passage of this bylaw shall be deemed to comply. So what are you saying it will comply to being included in this application, as opposed to, like, we're going to have to go through all the inspections, fire, building, all that. So it's just that whatever buildings are there the day that if we pass this, those are the only buildings that will be included in the rezoning.
To you, Mr. Chair, essentially that's correct. All the buildings will have to go through their inspections and structural approvals and what have you. Typically, what this means when you have existing buildings as of the date of the passage of the bylaw shall be deemed to comply, that typically refers more to setbacks. And so the position of the buildings, as opposed to, and also, yes, the fact that they are existing right there right now. So they would be part of the new bylaw. And rather than citing all of the specific setbacks that you would have in this sort of thing from a zone, it's easier just to say the buildings as they are situated right now exist in their places, and that's recognized in the bylaw by being deemed to comply.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. If there are no other questions from council members, Raylene, were you?
Yeah, I just wanted to make note that there is somebody, one of the attendees has their hand raised. Just wanted to remind her that this portion was for council questions and that the chair will open it up to the public momentarily, but it's just going through the process.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. So I'll now ask the applicant or agent to please identify yourself by stating your name for the record. Is there the agent there to
Hi.
speak?
Yes, it's Christine. Hi.
Okay, thank you. And would you like to make any representation on your application?
Yes, please. So I provided the clerk with a PowerPoint. So I would just like to go through that PowerPoint.
All right,
And then I can answer a few of the questions then at the end as well.
great.
So Raylene, if you can just skip to the aerial. Michael's went through the proposal. So I'm Christine Loft. I'm a planner representing the landowner, Alexandra Gott. The property is 428167 8th Concession A. The site is located just west of Feversham. The lands have a lot area of 40 hectares, which is located or split slightly off of the 8th concession A, and you can see that on the aerial. The lands are deeded as one. They are not separately conveyable, and the landowner receives one tax bill. And as such, we've identified the property as one entire property. I know the county had provided some comments on that, and I did confirm that they are registered as one parcel today. The lands include primarily agricultural lands that are under cultivation. The lot has frontage on 8th Line. There are currently two entrances, one that exists for the use of the house, and then a second entrance that would have been a farm entrance. Only a portion of the property is proposed as part of the amendment, which is the 0.8 hectares. And that is really the portion that also includes all of the existing building cluster on the property today. So the lands to the north are agricultural, lands to the east are the settlement area of Feversham. There is an industrial use and a residential use that I'll talk about in a moment. And then to the south are woodlands and the gorge. And the amendment, as I've indicated, is only for the lands that are identified generally in the red circle on the aerial. Next slide. So just an overall look at the proposed use. So it is categorized as an on-farm diversified use, and that's important when we're looking at PPS and the official plan. And the proposal is to allow for agritourism type uses, including an events venue. And that events venue could be for a range of uses. And I've sort of tried to define it as the holding of an assembly of people for the purposes of weddings, parties, educational events, business retreats, and other similar gatherings. The area limited is to the 0.8 hectares. There would be a staff member on site or a representative on behalf of the owner on site during all events. The proposal is for 195 persons at an event. And I will note we had pre-consulted on 250, but the application before you is for 195. And there was a question about parking. And so that relates also to that 195 number of people. The parking is on site. So the proposal is for the 57 spaces. And there was a question about that. So it is, that would meet the zoning provisions of 250. So I calculated it based on 250 because that was the original pre-consult. But it would be one space per 5 people would be the parking calculation out of your current zoning bylaw. And those would be for types of uses like places of worship, auditoriums, and convention centers. So that's the calculation. So we probably have more parking than we need at 195 people, but that's the parking calculation in your current zoning bylaw. The proposal is that the events would be held between May 1st and October 31st annually. So it would be expected that in a site plan agreement that would be identified. Hours of operation, Friday to Saturday ending at 1 a.m. And that allows time for people, not only for the event to end, but for people to leave the site. And weekday hours of operation, Sunday through Thursday, ending at midnight. Next slide. I was about to push a button. So I have a number of photos. I'm sure all of you have driven by or drive by it on a regular basis, but this is the entrance on the east. which would be the entrance going into the existing house on site. And then you can see the barn in the background. Next slide. So this is, I'm actually standing at the second entrance now, the farm entrance. So this would be the area for the parking. So it is flat today. There is a line of trees that you can see in the middle photo. So I think if you looked at the middle photo and the photo on the right, though, that's basically the parking area in those two areas. So certainly in close proximity to the barn. And I'm just off the road in those photographs. Next slide. My dog got in the picture here, but this is just a panoramic view. And so I've just continued to walk from those previous photos. So you can see the barn and the open end there, which is identified as the storage area on the site plan, and then the barn in behind and the residence in the foreground. Next slide. And just another angle of the barn, you can see the overhang. And whenever we look at the site plan, you can sort of see the breakdown of how the space would be used. But that overhang could certainly be used for people in the case of rain. And the food and bar area, which is a small enclosed area just at the opposite end of that storage building, would be where food and a bar would be serviced from. Next photo. And so I've just taken directions from each entrance. So the photo on the left is looking to the east, and on the right-hand side is looking to the west. South Wind Engineering, we did submit an engineering report, and it has identified the sight lines, and in both cases, there is a sight line of 135 meters between each entrance, and also 135 meter sight line beyond each of those entrances. And next slide. So this is the site plan that's being submitted and would be the one that will certainly base the any further details that are required as part of site plan approval. So the outlined area is the 0.8 hectares. You can see the two driveways, one to the house on the east side, and then the one on the west side, which enters into where cars would be parked. Of course, the proposal is to leave it as grass. I mean, we've marked on here for identifying the number of cars that could be parked reasonably, but the proposal would be that it would remain grass. And in the middle of that parking area, you can see the existing line of trees that would remain. Raylene, could you just click once? Okay, so I just have a number of clicks, Raylene, and I'll just go through just so that we look at each of the different areas. So, so the red lines obviously is the area that we're proposing to rezone for the use. And the next one. And the next one. So these are the two access points. The intent would be that any patrons on site would be utilizing the westerly entrance and parking in that westerly parking lot, and that the driveway for that enters into the house would be utilized on a limited basis. Click. And so this is the existing house, and I believe that was the comments from Mrs. Hale, I think that was, or maybe it was Ms. Boynton on the house on site. So my understanding of the letter was that that she was discussing the house on site. Next click. And so the yellow is generally the barn. So that it's 217 square meters. It would be the upper floor of the barn that would be used for events, and that's what the building code will need to identify, or the criteria that was identified by Michael would be on that that upper level. It is a bank, but it's a typical bank barn. If you look at the back of it, there's a ramp up that would be used, and the doors, entrance doors would be on that northerly side. Click. And so this is the overhang that we could see in the photographs. So it is open air. It's just a roof and fully open. Next clip. This is the bar food area that is proposed. It's just a small end of that implement shed. It's actually quite small. It's 43 square meters. I think it would be more people serving food, and bar service would be in the building, and not a significant amount of patrons would even be in that area, in that portion of the building, because of its size. It would be more for a service area. And that's the open end of the storage building that we could see in the photos. And it's an existing implement shed today. I don't know that there's any real significant plans for that area. It is open-ended. On the south end, it is wide open. And then this area is the guest area, so where people could congregate, both in this area and then on the north side of the barn area in that area. And the parking area, so we've identified 57 spaces, as I've indicated, based on 195 persons. That would be more than what your bylaw would require. I don't anticipate that there's a parking issue, but certainly if council or staff felt that more parking was required, we could certainly look at that. However, based on the bylaw requirements, it would be anticipated that that would be what the municipality would be looking for to meet the current bylaw. In terms of the official plan, the lands are designated agricultural and hazard. This is the mapping from your local official plan. And next slide. And a planning report was submitted and of course covered off all of the OP policy, both at the county level and the local level. The new on-farm diversified uses are permitted uses. We did pre-consult and have had an understanding with staff that it is a permitted use, and with a number of criteria. And I've just highlighted a few of the key ones, which is that they are limited in size and scale. And so we've just identified that the use is limited in terms of lot area, so outside of the current agricultural fields, and really only utilizes the lands that are surrounding the existing barn. There are grass and gravel today, that we're utilizing the existing barn and accessory structure and the existing residence, and there's no proposed new structures, and that the area is limited to the 0.8 hectares, which proportionally to the 40 hectares met that limited scale. Determining the size of the on-farm diversified use, again, relating to the land area, staying out of the agricultural fields and utilizing existing buildings. Number 18 is, prior to considering a new on-farm diversified use, it shall be demonstrated that the following criteria can be met. So we have submitted an engineering report. I understand that it's being peer reviewed. We have received the county comments. They were circulated to us, I'm sure, when the municipality received them. So we are working on a response to those comments, and we'll be able to do that shortly. We thought we'd wait till after this public meeting in case there were other items that came up that we could respond to all at one time. But we had anticipated that each of these items that we would require to demonstrate how we meet them. So just to run through a few of them was the traffic, the sight distances from the driveways, the noise emissions. There is, the South Winds does speak to noise emissions. There is the closest sensitive land use is the house just located to the east, and it actually spoke to Councillor Little, that little lot that's sort of cut out of the subject lands. That is the closest sensitive land use to the zoned area. And so when the South Winds report speaks to distances, it is referring to that lot, which is about 190 meters from the zoned area. So there were some questions on that, and we will further respond to that, or have South Winds further respond to that. There are obviously ministry guidelines and PC 300 that will need to be, or that have been reviewed, and it does need to be met. So we will provide any further information beyond what we already have. Building classification and the OBC information, again, that's required. A change of use permit will be required, and so that information will be required throughout this process, and also as part of the building permit for the change of use. Surrounding land uses, I think I spoke to, and private services. So the intent would be that it would be portable washrooms, and water supply would be provided. Bottled water would be provided, not patrons would not be using the well water, and that the private services that are existing today are only for the existing house, and that would continue on. Okay. Okay, so this just speaks again to the small scale. So in your local OP, it defines the small scale, of course, as on parcels 20 hectares or greater, occupies combined building not exceeding 250 square meters. Outdoor storage and display is limited to 750 square meters, and that a proposal is passed through an implementing zoning bylaw. So the enclosed structures would include the barn and the food bar areas. So that would be a combined area of 260 square meters. And then the outdoor space would be 200 square meters. I did delve into this a little bit more in the planning report, but typically there would be areas in a structure that we wouldn't necessarily calculate into the 250 if it was a maintenance room or an area that patrons would not have access to. And so if we calculated that, we would be at or below the 250 square meter small scale definition. And just the last couple of slides. So the zoning bylaw as identified, zones the lands A1, and then there's a bit of sliver of the development D, which I think just represents the settlement boundary. And then you can see the RUR on the right-hand side, which is the small lot that's cut out of the property, and then the existing structures on the subject lands are all within the A1. Next slide. So we've kept the bylaw relatively simple, and certainly there's room for any changes as we process the comments received. But the area, first of all, defining the use, so the additional use of the special events, and general provisions, which would identify the 0.8 hectares, the 195 patrons, the events being held between May 1st and October 31st, the hours of operation, the exception to the noise requirements for hours of operation, parking spaces provided at 57, and then existing buildings as of the date of passage. And I just agree with Michael on the comment on that verbiage. The house doesn't actually meet the front yard setback. So the other buildings would meet everything, but the house would not currently meet that front yard setback. So that provision simply covers off that setback. So that's the end of my presentation. And I think I've answered the questions that were earlier asked about the parking and the setback. As I've indicated, we did receive the county comments, and I received Ms. Boynton's comments this morning. So we will, when we do respond to the municipality, we'll incorporate our response comments to her comments as well, and then the new comments from Mrs. Hale, which perhaps Michael could send me, and then we can respond to anything on that. And the one item I don't think that I identified necessarily in the presentation, but the use of the house. First of all of the structures are part of the farm cluster. They're in close proximity to each other. And so the proposal is that all of the buildings in that triangular area be zoned for the proposed use. And the intent would be that the house could be used in the case of a wedding, that the bride could utilize the house for getting ready, and that it could be used on an overnight basis for the night of the rental. There has been no intent. I know Ms. Boynton's comments speak to Airbnb and that sort of thing, but there's been no intent on it being rented out on a regular basis in an Airbnb fashion. And in fact, those Airbnb provisions relate more to homes located in settlement areas, in neighborhoods where typically an Airbnb may be problematic. So I'm happy to speak to staff more thoroughly about the comments on Airbnb, but at this point, we would still propose that it be included within the commercial zone. And if there's some way of tying that use down in the zoning bylaw, then we can work with staff on doing that. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christine, for that detailed report. And did that bring up any other questions from council members? Tom, did I see your hand?
I did have a question, but the last comments from Ms. Loft answered those. I was concerned about the use of the house, whether it was short-term accommodation and how it fit into the proposal, but I think she's addressed those, and perhaps in the site plan agreement, we can make sure there are no issues regarding short-term accommodation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of or opposition to this application? And please note that you will be required to state your full name and address for the clerk prior to speaking, and that your comments will be included in the minutes and will form part of the municipal records. So is there, Raylene, do we have anybody that would like to speak?
Yes, we have Jennifer Hale. She has her hand up. I will just unmute her now. And then following that, we also have Eric Brown. So Jennifer, you should be free to talk now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So my name is Jennifer Hale. My address is actually 252 Birch Street in Collingwood. My mother, however, lives on the neighboring farm immediately west of the property that we're talking about. Thank you everyone for all of the information and all of the diligence that is obviously being done on this proposal. I will say that we are excited at the opportunity of how this might be used, and you know, it'll be, sounds like a great and a beautiful place. It will continue to be a beautiful place to look at, and we're excited about that. There were a couple of things, a couple of surprises that I heard. One was the change from what I had seen was a maximum of 150 people. What I heard today was a maximum of 195. So that's something I was not expecting. And then the time levels. So I was a little surprised to hear 1 a.m. and midnight. as the time limits for the events taking place, to respect the noise concerns. I would have expected something more along the lines of 11 p.m. certainly during the week. So I guess that's a question I have. I'd like to review what's reasonable. I do know that when parties happen at the community center, which is across the gorge, that we can hear that on the property, not to the point where it's disturbing by any means, but I know that we can hear it at that distance. So that might be something that we would like to question and review, as well as that 195 and what the right amount is, or what the maximum amount of people are. The one parking space for 5 people, that's new information for me. Just thinking through whether or not that, I guess you said that's based on churches and places like that, that sort of expectation of 5 people per car, with an expectation of 195 people. My next question was just what would happen to any overflow parking? Because as you noted, the property and the entrance are on a curve, and if the overflow parking, I'm not sure there's a lot of space on that curve for overflow parking to go, so that might be worth revisiting as well. And those are all my comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next speaker is Ms. Seeley, Boynton Seeley. Aaron, are you there?
No, actually it's
Oh,
Eric
sorry.
Brown.
Sorry, Eric Brown. Okay. Sorry.
Hi, this is actually Chantel Brown. I'm Eric's wife. We live at 428-187 8th Concession. So we are actually in that little pocket right next to the property that everybody keeps speaking about. I'm not sure what the woman's name is that just spoke before me. I think it was Jennifer. And I completely agree with everything she said, except for being excited about this proposal, of course. There has to be somebody that's going to stir up something. We moved here from Thornbury to the beautiful Feversham for peace and quiet. And our little piece of paradise, our little cutout here has been really wonderful. The real concern I have is the noise. I have 2 children. One is 4 and one is 2. So, 1 a.m. listening to music, I'm not that thrilled about. And also parking. I know that when the wedding happened last year, the one event that had happened there was overflow parking onto and in front of our property during that event, which, for one event was fine with us, but on a continued basis, we definitely would not be thrilled. I don't advertise that I'm knowledgeable in all the legal jargon that everybody's speaking about, but just as a mom and as a member of the community, it's not something that I'm that excited about. And that's just really my piece, just because of noise and parking. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And okay, those were the 2 that wanted to speak. Are there any others, Raylene? Nobody last second raised their hand?
Nope, I'm not seeing anybody else with their hand raised.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you. So are there any general questions from council?
Chair Allen?
Yes.
Sandy Gott has just raised her hand.
Okay, all right. Sandy, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate everybody's time. And I've heard the comments and I understand the comments. I just wanted in particular to comment on the parking, because when we had the family wedding last year, we had arranged for buses from where the people were staying. And that's a 2-pronged thing. We don't want to have a lot of cars parked on the site. And also a lot of people don't want and should not be driving home after the evening's over. So that's part of our thought process on the parking side. And these other issues and concerns we'll definitely take into consideration in our comments, as Christine said. So I just want to thank everybody for your time today.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Okay, are there any comments or questions from council? No? All right, as there is no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for consideration. So thank you, Christine, and members of the public that gave us their input. Okay, the next zoning bylaw amendment is file number Z04-2020. And the registered owner is Menno Martin and Susannah Martin. The agent is Abraham Martin. The legal description is lot 67 and 68, Concession 1, NDR OSPREY, Grey Highlands, with a civic address of 309-563 Centerline B. And the notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on May 5th, 2020 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. And we'll now have our planner review the purpose and the effect of the proposed bylaw and advise of any comments received. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to say that this Zoom meeting is giving me fantastic looking hair, I have to say. But anyways, I kind of look like Elvis there with this big thing. Okay, back to the application at hand. The purpose of this application is to amend the Municipality of Grey Highlands zoning bylaw to rezone a portion of the subject lands to permit a small-scale engine repair shop and to permit an outdoor firewood processing yard on the subject property. The effect of the amendment is to permit those two uses and to amend Schedule A10 from a rural hazard and wetland zone to a rural hazard wetland and then a site-specific rural commercial C4-382 zone. Exception 382 will permit and regulate the small engine repair shop and the outdoor firewood processing yard. The subject lands are located at 309-563 Centerline B, located on the north side of the road, west of Road 124. The lands have a lot area of 41.2 hectares and a frontage of 410 meters and are, as I noted, zoned rural, hazard, and wetland as shown on the screen. The property is a mix of farmlands, woodlands, and wetlands with a creek traversing the southern portions of the property. The building cluster, comprised of a dwelling, barns, and sheds, is located on the southern portion of the property just south of the creek and adjacent to Centerline B. The proposed shop will be located behind the dwelling in the buggy shed and an existing shed. This shed has an existing footprint of 208 square meters. The firewood processing area will be located behind and beside this shop, the 200 square meter shop, occupying a yard area of approximately 3,900 square meters. In terms of comments received to date, the County of Grey Planning and Development Services Department provided comments on March 9th, 2020, and they say that provided the small engine repair is used for farm equipment and associated farming needs and is not used as a commercial automotive mechanic shop, county planning staff have no concerns. They also note that there's no size limitations for agricultural related uses under the county official plan. County planning staff recommend comments are received from the local conservation authority to ensure the proposed development site is suitable from an environmental and natural heritage perspective. Should the local conservation authority see fit, a further environmental assessment or review may be required. The Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority provided comments on March 18th, noting that the NVCA has no objection to the application as proposed, subject to the applicant, let me reword that. The NVCA has no objection to the application as proposed, subject to the applicant obtaining a permit from the NVCA. Municipality of Grey Highlands Building Services Department provided comments on March 18th, noting that the owner should be aware that any development in the future on the subject lands will require approved permits from all legislative authorities and meet the required regulations in place at the time of the application. Excuse me, the Municipality of Grey Highlands Fire and Emergency Services provided comments on February 25th, noting there are two separate applications on this file. Z18, which is a bunker silo power room, which they have no comments on. And then they have the subject of tonight's application, Z04, is the wood processing yard. Fire and Emergency Services needs to confirm that the lumber yard will be compliant with Part 322 of the Ontario Fire Code, which is outdoor storage of lumber and forest products. A site inspection is required or requested before operations commence. The Municipality of Grey Highlands Transportation Environmental Services Department also provided comments on March 18th, noting that the Transportation Environmental Services Department provides the following comments in relation to the Z18 2020 removal of hold provision and the Z04 2020 amendment to zoning bylaw planning applications. This property is within the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority jurisdiction and includes environmental features such as wetlands, floodplains, and water bodies. An environmental impact study is recommended to be received. Appropriate permits from the NVCA and other agencies to be received prior to the approval of the site plan control agreement.
Michael,
yes?
Michael, can I just, I don't know that I've ever seen test department make a comment like that about an EIS. I almost wondered if it was, no offense, but an error in the report. But
those are the comments received from the test department. And I've noticed that they've started to provide more fulsome comments on our applications from a general environmental perspective, as well as from their transportation perspective.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Carry on.
That's okay. So as per a condition of the zoning application, the applicant is to provide appropriate information regarding the generated delivery manufactured goods truck traffic on the municipal roads. The applicant is to confirm the delivery frequencies, truck size, if it's a tractor trailer, and average weight tons per delivery of supplies and manufactured products to and from the proposed C4 shop. A detailed delivery truck route to be provided to and from the proposed shop from the nearest collector road, which would be a county road or a provincial highway. The truck route information will allow the test department to monitor the road conditions and maintain applications within this defined truck route. Future road improvements will need to be evaluated along the truck routes to ensure the long-lasting lifespan of the road, such as increasing regular road-based structure to be considered. As per a condition of the site plan control agreement, existing entrances to the site will need to be reviewed to comply with the requirements of Grey Highlands Policy A09T-04 entrance permit, specifically the requirements therein for reclassification of the access to a commercial entrance. Also, the test department will require site plan restrictions on the delivery trucks and haul route for this application. If this is not satisfactory to the applicant, roadway improvements should be considered as a site plan requirement. And those, I believe, are the extent of the comments received thus far.
okay, thank you, Michael. Okay, any questions or comments from council to our planner? No, seeing none. Okay. I'll now ask the applicant or their agent to please identify yourself by stating your name for the record. Is there somebody representing this file that would like to speak?
I just want to remind that if you are in attendance on the phone, by dialing *9 will raise your hand if you intend to speak.
No?
Nothing shown.
Okay. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of or opposition to this application? Anybody here wanting to make a support or a submission in support of or opposition to this application? Raylene, nobody?
Nothing.
All right. Any general questions? No, from council? We're all, Dane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question through Michael, and I'm trying to understand this one myself, and forgive me if I missed it. A regular C4 application, which would be what's going on for the engine repair shop, usually has for 750 square meters as a max yard. What's the reasoning for the lumber use to be up to 3,900 square meters? Is it just because that's an agricultural use and really isn't part of the C4?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that's how it's viewed in both the county, well, specifically in the county official plan, and then more generally in the local municipal official plan. The a lumber yard, which is, I'm trying to find the wording I used on it, is it's an ancillary use to woodlot management. Not the same as a sawmill, which is now for the processing of the lumber. But so in the both the county official plan and our local municipal official plan, those uses are considered as agriculturally related use versus a C4, which is agricultural diversified use.
Does that answer your question? All right. No other questions, Kathy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question, because it seems a bit new for us that, and the chair raised the point that included in the TES department comments were a reference to the requirement, recommending the requirement for an environmental impact study. And also the county noted that there might be a requirement for an EIS based on natural heritage linkages. And then, so the NVCA then is not requiring an EIS. In the conclusion of the letter, it says, feel free to contact should you require any further clarification. And I'm just wondering if that's something that Grey Highlands staff could do, would be to follow up with NVCA, since there have been concerns raised by transportation and by the county. How does NVCA handle those comments that were raised?
Michael?
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. We can certainly follow up with the NVCA to find out what their reasoning is why an EIS would not be required. Is it part of the permit application process or what have you? But I'll certainly follow up with them to find out that information.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One more chance. Any discussion, questions? No? All right. As there is no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for consideration. Thank you very much. Okay, the next zoning bylaw amendment is file number Z11-2020. The registered owner is 1860954 Ontario Incorporated. The applicant is Antoine Adams. The legal description is lot 24 PL 835 Artemesia, Grey Highlands, with a civic address of 108 Mary B. Lane. The notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on May 5th, 2020 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. We will now have our planner review the purpose and the effect of the proposed bylaw and advise of any comments received. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this application is to amend the municipality zoning bylaw to permit development on a private road. The effect of this bylaw is to amend Schedule F2 from residential to residential R13. Exception 13 permits the development of an attached garage on a private road. The subject lands are located on the west side of Mary B's Lane in the Beaver Valley Ski Club development area. The lands have a lot area of 0.2 hectares and a frontage of 40 meters along Mary B's Lane. The property includes an existing residence, well, and septic system. An attached garage is proposed to be added to the north side of the dwelling. The surrounding neighborhood is primarily residential. I should note that while I'm going down to the comments is that the setbacks, the side yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks for the attached garage fit the zoning bylaw. So we only need the zoning for the private road. Here we are. Okay, so excuse me for that. The comments were received from the Grey County Planning and Development Services Department on March 17th. And they note that the proposed development will occur on a private road, but county planning staff recognize that residential development already pre-exists on the subject property, and the addition of a garage will not have a further impact on access. County planning staff have no further concerns in that regard. They also note that provided the positive comments are received from the Conservation Authority regarding significant woodlands, county planning staff have no further concerns with the subject application. The Grey Sauble Conservation Authority provided comments on March 16th, 2020, noting that based on the Grey County official plan mapping, significant woodlands was identified as a natural heritage feature extending through the southwest corner of the property. Based on the submitted site plan, the proposed development is outside of that mapped significant woodland. The GSCA generally has no objection to the subject proposal as it is consistent with the existing land use and is not anticipated to negatively impact the Ontario regulated 151-06 area, natural hazard and or significant natural heritage features. Please be advised that the subject property is located within the Niagara Escarpment Recreation Area as defined under the Niagara Escarpment Plan. We recommend that you contact the Niagara Escarpment Commission office in Owen Sound for more information regarding the plan. The Municipality of Grey Highlands Transportation Environmental Services Department provided comments on March 18th, noting that the provided site plan drawing appears to indicate that the applicant will remove the existing entrance to the property and install a new entrance. Installation of the new entrance will need to comply with requirements of the Grey Highlands Policy A09-T-04 entrance permit. The Municipality of Grey Highlands Building Department provided comments on March 15th, and they note that the owner should be aware that any development in the future on the subject lands will require approved permits from all legislative authorities and meet the required regulations in place at the time of application. Grey Highlands Fire and Emergency Services provided comments on February 24th, noting no concerns. The municipality's Public Utilities Department provided comments on February 24th, noting no concerns. And the municipality's Council and Legislative Services Department also provided comments on February 24th, noting no concerns. We also received comments from Mr. David Middleton on March 9th. Mr. Middleton notes that he is fully supportive of this amendment and the attached garage. He thinks this is a reasonable request and have noted that other residents nearby where similar amendments have been granted in the past. He also thinks a permanent garage is the much preferred to a temporary structure. And those are the extent of the comments noted at this time.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I have a question. Normally, when a property is in the Niagara Escarpment area, they ask us for comments because it's out of our hands. Why the difference here? Is it just because of the private road?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in this area, it's actually, yes, it's within the Niagara Escarpment's plan area, but it's in a recreational zone area as identified under the Niagara Escarpment Commission. And in such an area as that, it's outside of the NEC's development permit control area. So although it's within their plan, they've somewhat released jurisdiction, for lack of a better word, over that area. It's not covered under their development control. That's why it's actually part of our zoning bylaw.
Okay, so the comment from, was it the county or no, the Grey Stauble to talk to the Niagara Escarpment Commission office in Owen Sound, is that something that we should be doing, or is it up to us?
To you, Mr. Chair, I'll certainly follow up with the planner for the Niagara Escarpment Commission just to verify that he does or does not have any comments on this application. But
okay,
we're in general contact with them all the time, so it'll be
okay,
an easy thing to do.
Thank you. Are there any questions from other council members? Seeing none. Okay. I'll now ask if the applicant or their agent, if they please identify themselves by stating your name for the record. Anybody here representing this file? Raylene?
Yes, Antoine Adams has raised their hand to speak. I will allow them to speak right now. Antoine, you may speak.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thanks very much for your time. For your first time out, the Zoom meeting's going really well, so congratulations. I think the planner did a great job in covering everything. I have nothing further to add, but more than happy to answer any question that anyone may have.
All right, thank you, Antoine. Are there any questions for the applicant? Nope, looks like you're off the hook. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of or opposition to this application? Raylene, has anybody indicated they'd like to speak?
I don't see anyone.
Okay, we'll just give just a moment or two just in case. No, we're okay?
Still okay.
All right. Any general questions or comments from council? No. Okay.
Director Benner has raised his hand.
Okay, Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me just lower my hand here. Oops, sorry. There we go. We did receive comments from the NEC that our planning coordinators has sent me. They're actually multitasking too. They're on my phone. So I'm just looking to see if I can find the comments. And essentially, NEC staff have no objection with the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to allow for construction of a garage on a lot which is serviced by a private road. Should you have any questions, please feel free to contact the NEC. And this is from Brandon Henderson, who's a senior planner with the NEC, and he sent it on February 25th, 2020.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Probably missed it in the file.
It's good to get that cleared up. Okay, if there's no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for consideration. Thank you very much, everyone. Is everyone, we're an hour and 20 minutes. Is everybody okay to do another file, and then perhaps we'll take a 5-minute break? Is everybody okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right. We'll do one more file. Oh, better make sure I have this up. Okay. The next zoning bylaw amendment is file number Z13-2020. And the registered owner is Southline Enterprises Incorporated. The agent is Henry Martin. The legal description is North Half Lot 1415 Concession 3 SDR Artemesia, Grey Highlands, with a civic address of 305-280 Southline A. And the notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on May 5th, 2020, to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. And we will now have our planner review the purpose and the effect of the proposed bylaw and advise of any comments received. Michael, you're back on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this application is to amend the municipality zoning bylaw to rezone a portion of the lands to permit a small-scale metalwork shop on the subject property. And as you can see on the drawing, it's the little box that's shown as a little box with a C4 in it right at the front of the property. The effect of the zoning amendment is to amend Schedule A7, which is this, that's what it looks like on the map, from agricultural, rural, and hazard to agricultural, rural, hazard, and rural commercial C4. The subject lands are located at 305-280 Southline A, located on the south side of the road west of Grey Road 14. The lands have a lot area of 31.9 hectares and a frontage of 414 meters, and are zoned agricultural, rural, and hazard. The property is a combination of farmlands and woodlands. The building cluster, comprised of a dwelling, a coverall barn, and a coverall barn, there's only two of them, is located adjacent to Southline A. The proposed shop area will be located behind and to the east of the dwelling and the coverall. A new barn and shed are also proposed to be constructed in the vicinity of the shop. This zoning amendment is only for the proposed shop. In terms of comments received, comments were received from the County of Grey Planning and Development Service Department on March 17th. They note that provided that positive comments are received from the Conservation Authority regarding natural heritage and hazard features, County planning staff have no further concerns with the subject application. Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority provided comments on February 14th, noting that SVCA staff are asking for an amended site plan, as the one submitted by the applicant does not match that on the notice of public meeting, and puts the proposed commercial zone within the existing hazard. While the buildings appear to be outside of the hazard as mapped by SVCA staff, the proposed commercial zone is within the hazard, along with proposed filling and grading of the site. Should a suitable plan amendment be submitted, taking into account site grading, SVCA staff could likely find the application acceptable. And just to note that we're still looking for that amended site plan to send to the SVCA. In terms of the Transportation Environmental Services, they provided comments on April 24th as follows. The test department provides the following comments in relation to Z13-2020. The information provided within the application is incorrect or incomplete. The property is within the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority jurisdiction and includes environmental features such as wetlands, floodplains, and water bodies. An environmental impact study is recommended to be received. Appropriate permits from the SVCA and other agencies to be received prior to the approval of this application. Before I go on to the Transportation Department comments, just to comment on that first little bit. The application itself often provides a checklist of features that are in or near the proposed development. And occasionally an applicant will miss a feature, like they might think that they're 250 meters away from a wetland when indeed they're a lot closer, things like that. So that's what the test department was alluding to in that area about the application being incomplete. In terms of transportation comments, the test department notes that the applicant is to provide additional information regarding the generated delivery and manufactured goods truck traffic on municipal roads. Southline A is a gravel road that the municipality provides more frequent gravel maintenance due to the existing road structure. The approval of the C4 shop will generate additional traffic on this municipal road. The applicant is to convey the delivery frequencies, truck size, and average weight per delivery of supplies and manufactured products to and from the proposed C4 shop. A detailed map of delivery truck routes shall be provided to and from the proposed shop from the nearest collector roadway. The truck route information will allow the test department to monitor the road conditions and maintenance applications within this defined truck route. Future road improvement will need to be evaluated along the truck routes to ensure the long-lasting lifespan of the road. The site plan drawing received is not adequate and does not identify the Conservation Authority jurisdiction boundary. The location of the proposed new laneway is located within the SVCA jurisdiction and is in close proximity to a wetland feature. The laneway entrance onto this property will need to comply with the commercial entrance standard requirements as per the Highlands policy A09T-04 entrance permit. Specifically, the requirements therein for reclassification of the access to a commercial entrance. An entrance permit application must be received with CA, Conservation Authority approval, prior to the approval of the site plan agreement for the C4 development. The Municipality Greyhounds Building Department provided comments on March 15th, noting that the owner should be aware that any development in the future on the subject lands will require approved permits from all legislative authorities and meet the required regulations in place at the time of application. The Greyhounds Fire and Emergency Services, Greyhounds Public Utility Department, and Greyhounds Council and Legislative Services all provided comments on February 24th, noting no concerns. We also received comments from Mr. and Mrs. Carson dated March 22nd, 2020, and they note opposition to the application given the impact on traffic and the road and the neighborhood character and the environment. Those are the extent of the comments received so far.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Are there any comments or questions from council to the planner? No. Okay. I will now ask if the applicant or the agent would like to speak, and if so, please identify yourself by stating your name for the record. Raylene, is anybody wanting to speak?
No, I do see that Henry Martin is in attendance, but he is not indicating any intention to speak at the present time.
All right. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of or opposition to this application? Anybody here supporting this application or opposing this application?
There is a hand up. I will allow this person to talk. Okay, you may speak now.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Elfrida Featherstone, and I live on the property to the east of this proposal at 305-334 Southline A. Many years ago, probably around 2004, my husband and I were interested in purchasing that property. And at the time, we were told that because of the condition of the land and the hazards, there will be no other buildings other than the house on that property. It's not a Quonset shed, it's a coverall shelter, which is considered a temporary building. And that was the only building that was allowed on that property several years later. We were told that there would be no development on that property, and now all of a sudden, there's going to be development. Why are there two rules, you know, then and now? That's what I would like to know.
All right, thank you, Elfrida. Well, people do have the right to make application. It doesn't mean that they will be given approval, but they always have the right to apply. Is that your information that you got, was that quite a few years ago, or how long ago was that?
It was probably around 2004.
Okay.
And that bush that you see to the east of that building, so that bush is about a third on that property and the rest of it is on my property. And it is very wet. And I'm just wondering about, like, as your letter from Mrs. Carson, where is the water going to go? Those sort of things. Is the wetlands there going to be contaminated? That's what we're fearing for our cattle farm.
Okay. All right. Well, all these comments have been noted, and they will be taken into consideration when the planner makes a report that will go to council in the future. So thank you very much. Are there any questions from council to the member of the public that just spoke? No, I don't see anything. So again, thank you, Elfrida. We'll take those into consideration, those comments.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Raylene, is there anybody else wishing to support or oppose this application?
I'm not seeing any other hands up.
All right. Any further discussion? Questions from council? No? Okay. So as there is no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for consideration. Thank you. Now, I said we'd take a break. Are we okay? Do we need a break? No? Okay. How about if people let me know if they need a break? How's that? All right. Okay. The next zoning bylaw amendment is file number Z14 2020. The registered owner is AH Farms Limited, and the agent is Henry Martin. The legal description is Lot 19, Concession 3, SDR Artemesia, Part Lot 18, and 20, Concession 3, SDR Artemesia, as in R480485, except Part 15, 17R 634 Grey Highlands, with a civic address of 305374 Southline A. And the notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on May 5th, 2020 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. And we'll now have our planner review the purpose and the effect of the proposed bylaw and advise of any comments received. Michael?
Thank you. The purpose of this application is to amend the municipality zoning bylaw to rezone a portion of the subject lands to permit a small-scale metalwork shop on the subject property. The effect of this amendment is to amend Schedule A7 from an agricultural A1 374 and an agricultural A1 375 zone. Those are both site-specific zones recognizing lot areas, and hazard to an agricultural A1 374, agricultural A1 375, hazard, and then the rural commercial C4 shop. The subject lands are presently known as 305, 374 Southline A. The lands have a total lot area of 75 hectares and a lot frontage of 584 meters. The lands are comprised of agricultural lands, creeks, and woodlands. These lands are being processed under a consent application B28 2019, which proposes to divide the subject lands into 2 equal parts, all with frontage on Southline A. The lands have also recently been rezoned through zoning bylaw 2020-18, recognizing the reduced lot areas for both the severed and retained lands. That's why there's the 375 exception on the one side and 374 on the eastern side. The current proposal requests permission to create a rural commercial C4 shop for a metalworking business. A building cluster comprised of a dwelling, a barn, and coverall sheds is located adjacent to Southline A, and the proposed shop will be located behind the dwelling and the barn. In terms of comments received, we have not received any comments from the county yet, which is a little unusual, but as of the authoring of the report on May 21st, I was not able to find any comments. Comments dated April 27th were received from the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. The SVCA staff reviewed the proposed site plan and advised that it will not be within the SVCA screening area. However, if plans should change, please contact their office as permission may also be required. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is acceptable to SVCA staff. The Ministry of the Municipality of Grey Highlands Transportation and Environmental Services provided comments on May 5th. And to summarize, they note this is an application for a minor amendment to the zoning bylaw to rezone for the C4 shop. The property is within the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority jurisdiction and includes environmental features such as wetlands, floodplains, and water bodies. An environmental impact study is recommended to be received. Appropriate permits from the SVCA and other agencies to be received prior to the approval of the application. The applicant is to also confirm the existing entrance to Southline A meets their needs for the operation of a C4 shop. If improvements are needed, the applicant will need to comply with policy A09T04 entrance permit, specifically requirements therein for reclassification of the entrance type to a small scale commercial use. The proposed truck traffic information is not satisfactory. As a condition for the zoning application, the applicant to provide appropriate information regarding the generated delivery, manufactured goods, truck traffic on municipal roads. The applicant to confirm the delivery frequencies, truck size, and average weight per delivery of supplies and manufactured products to and from the proposed shop. A detailed delivery truck route to be provided to and from the shop to the nearest collector roadway. The truck route information will allow the test department to monitor the road conditions and maintenance applications within this defined truck route, and future road improvements will need to be evaluated along with truck routes to ensure the long-lasting lifespan of the road. Grey Highlands Building Services provided comments on April 22nd, noting that the owner should be aware that any development in the future on the subject lands will require approved permits from all legislated authorities and meet the required regulations in place at time of application. The Grey Highlands Fire and Emergency Services provided comments on April 6th, noting no concerns, and Grey Highlands Council and Legislative Services provided comments on April 21st, noting no concerns. That's the extent of the comments, or is it? No, hold on a second. I'm sorry. Let me just get this one. I think we still had one more. 14. No, those are the extent of the, our planning coordinator also just sent the county comments. If you bear with me for a second, I'll open those up just so that they are part of the record. Here we are. We received county comments on April 17th. And the county planning staff recommend that comments are received from the local conservation authority, which we have. County transportation services have no concerns with the proposed application. And so essentially, provided positive comments are received from the conservation authority, county planning staff have no concerns. That's the extent of the comments received today.
All right, thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or discussion from council at this time? No. Okay. And is the applicant or agent wanting to make any representation on this application? Raylene, is the agent in attendance?
So I believe you said that Henry Martin was the agent for this one as well. And as mentioned, it is showing that he is in attendance, but making no indication to speak.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of or opposition to this application? Anybody wanting to support or oppose this application, Raylene?
Yes, there is a hand up. I will allow them to speak now.
It's Elfrida Featherstone again of 305-334 Southline A. So this application is now to the east of us. I'm just wondering about the truck traffic that's going to be involved on this road to the east of me, to the west of me. Also, the entrance to that particular farm, since it was my former father-in-law's farm, I know the conditions of that road. And in the winter, like you can't go by this winter, but in previous winters, there is a lot of snow load right in front of that entrance. And it also goes down a bit of a dip, and you don't see until you're almost on that driveway. And it was in approximately the year 2000 that 3 cars came barreling down the road, and they almost hit the milk truck who was driving into that driveway. One of the cars ended up in McConvey's pond across the road. One car got through, and the other car clipped the hydro pole and broke it in half. So I'm just wondering about the truck traffic, and it is a blind lane that you don't really see when you're driving from west to east. So that's my comments right now.
Okay, thank you again, Elfrida. Test director is not part of this meeting, so we won't be able to get any comments from him. But again, your comments have been noted and will be in the planning report that comes to council for when it comes for consideration. So those concerns will be addressed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else, Raylene?
Nope, I'm seeing nobody else.
Okay. Any final comments or questions from council? I don't see any hands. So as there is no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for consideration. Okay. Okay, the next zoning bylaw amendment is file number Z17 2020. The registered owner is Andrew Martin. The agent is Henry Martin. The legal description is W half lot 32 concession 4 Artemesia, Grey Highlands, with a civic address of 346142 4th concession B. And the notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on May 5th, 2020 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property. And in addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. And again, we'll have our planner review the purpose and the effect of the proposed bylaw and advise of any comments received. Michael?
The purpose of this application is to permit another small-scale rural commercial shop for the assembly of LED light fixtures. The effect of this amendment would be to revise Schedule A9 from rural agricultural and hazard to rural agricultural hazard and rural commercial C4. Subject lands are known as 346142 4th concession B. The lands have a lot area of 20 hectares and a frontage of 200 meters. The lands are comprised of agricultural lands and woodlands. The current proposal requests permission to create a C4 shop for the assembly of LED light fixtures. The building cluster, comprised of a barn and sheds, is located in the central portions of the property. And the proposed shop, a new dwelling actually, will be located behind the existing barn. In terms of comments received, comments were received from the Grey County Planning and Development Service Department on April 16th. And they note that provided positive comments are received from the Conservation Authority and no development is intended to take place within the hazard lands, county planning staff have no concerns. The Grey Sauble Conservation Authority provided comments on April 27th. And they note that they generally have no objection to the subject proposal as it is not anticipated to negatively impact their regulated area, natural hazard and or significant natural heritage features. However, based on the site-specific review of the hazard features on the subject property using 3D stereo pairs and orthoimagery from 2010 and 2015, hazard land boundaries have been refined. We recommend that the site-specific zoning bylaw proposed for the property include an environmental hazard zone as outlined on their attached map and to include potential flooding and erosion hazard areas associated with the watercourse and wetland features. The municipality's Transportation and Environmental Services Department provided comments on May 6th. The test department provides the following comments in relation to the Z17 2020 planning application. The information provided within the application appears to be incorrect or incomplete. This property is within the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority jurisdiction and includes environmental features such as wetlands, streams, floodplains, and wetlands within 120 meters. An environmental impact study is recommended to be received. Appropriate permits from the GSCA and other agencies to be received prior to the approval of this application. The normal truck traffic information provided with the planning application is not satisfactory. The information identifies normal truck traffic 2 to 3 round trips and cargo vans cars not to exceed 10 trips a day. These trips generate approximately 26 AADT, I don't know what those are, traffic vehicle load on this 4th concession directly in front of the proposed C4. A 2016 traffic count of 130 vehicle daily trips, I think that is what it is, with 34.2% of the AAD over 232 commercial or ag vehicles. I'm sorry, I'm not a traffic guy, so those comments are a little cumbersome for me to get through, but the C4 will increase the current vehicle and commercial traffic counts on the 4th concession B. Fourth concession B is a gravel road, and the test department already provides more frequent gravel maintenance due to the condition or current travel level on that road. The applicant is to confirm the delivery frequencies, truck size, and average weight per delivery of vehicles, or sorry, per delivery of supplies and manufactured products to and from the proposed C4 shop. A detailed map of delivery truck route shall be provided to and from the proposed shop and the nearest collector roadway. The truck route information will allow the test department to monitor the road conditions and maintenance applications within this defined truck route. Future road improvement will need to be evaluated along the truck routes to ensure the long-lasting lifespan of the road. The existing driveway entrance onto this property will need to comply with the commercial entrance standard requirements as per Grey Highlands policy. Specifically, the requirements therein for reclassification of the access to a commercial entrance. An entrance permit application must be received with the C4 approval, or sorry, with CA approval prior to the approval of the site plan agreement of the C4 facility. The municipality of Grey Highlands Building Services also provided comments on April 7th, noting that the applicant is to be advised that any work proposed will require a building permit and may require fire separation between the two units. The permit application must note that the use of the unit to determine the required fire separation between units, washrooms conforming to section 3.8 of the Ontario Building Code may be required. All construction must conform to applicable law, and permits will be required. Grey Highlands Fire and Emergencies Services provided comments on April 6th, noting no concerns, and Grey Highlands Council and Legislative Services provided comments on April 21st, noting no concerns. And we have one other comment that was provided. I'm just pulling it up now. These comments were provided by Helena and Jersey Liz on May 19th, 2020. And they basically are asking for a request of notification of any decisions of the council on the proposal. They don't really note any other comments outside of that. So those are the extent of the comments received so far.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Are there any questions or comments from council at this time? And no questions? Okay. We'll now have the applicant or agent make any representation on this application. Raylene, I think it's the same agent.
And the same outcome. Yes, Henry Martin is in attendance, however, has not made any indication of wanting to speak.
All right. Well, we're glad he's here anyways. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of or opposition to this application? Anybody wishing to support or oppose this application? I'm not seeing any.
No hands have been raised.
No hands, okay. Any questions come up since 30 seconds ago from council? No questions. Councillor Nielsen, no, okay. All right, as there's no further discussion, this application will be forwarded to a future council meeting for consideration. Thank you. And are we good to do the final one? I think so. All right. Okay, the next file is a zoning bylaw amendment, file number Z22-2020, and also an official plan amendment, file number OP02-2020. The Registered owner is Catherine Penny and Jeremy Gourlay. The agent is Kristen Rennie from Georgian Planning Solutions. And the legal description is Part Lot 14, Concession 1, Euphrasia, Part 1, 16R 2147, Grey Highlands. The civic address is 355854 Blue Mountains, Euphrasia Town Line. And the notice of this public meeting was mailed by standard mail on May 5th, 2020 to the property owner and to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property. In addition to all agencies and persons identified in the Planning Act. And we will now have our planner review the purpose and the effect of the proposed bylaw and advise of any comments received. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this application is twofold. One is to amend the official plan to redesignate the subject lands to permit a lot line adjustment. And then there's an amendment to the zoning bylaw to implement consent application B15-2020. Provisional consent cannot be granted until the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment, well, especially this official plan amendment, has been adopted and approved. The zoning could be a condition of that severance, but we need the official plan in place first. The effect of the official plan amendment is to add a site-specific policy to the agricultural designation as it relates to the subject lands, which would permit the severance along the boundary between the Niagara Escarpment Plan area and the agricultural land use designation. Raylene's highlighting it on the arrow on the screen. The lands designated Niagara Escarpment Plan will be added to lands to the south, thus consolidating the farmlands. No new lot would be created through this process, just resizing of the existing lots. And then the amendment would obviously recognize the undersized remnant parcel. The effect of the zoning bylaw is to amend Schedule A2 from Niagara Escarpment Development and Agricultural to a Niagara Escarpment Development and a site-specific agricultural zone, noted as Exception 387. Exception 387 would recognize a reduced lot area of 19 hectares, where the zoning bylaw usually requires 40 hectares. In terms of background, the subject lands are known as 355854 Blue Mountains, Euphrasia Town Line. The lands have a total lot area of 40 hectares and a lot frontage of 305 meters. The lands are comprised mostly of agricultural lands and some woodlands. A building cluster comprised of a dwelling and barn and sheds is located in the front portion of the property adjacent to Town Line Road. The purpose of the applications are to facilitate a severance of the subject lands into two separate parcels. One parcel will be retained and the other parcel will be merged with the abutting lands to the north. An amendment to the official plan is required to sever the lands along the NEC boundary, jurisdictional boundary as proposed, and to recognize the undersized remnant parcel. A copy of the sketch is shown on the screen as Appendix 5 of the report. Well, actually, it's showing the zoning, but a copy of the sketch is actually shown under Appendix 5 of the report. There it is. Thank you, Raylene. In terms of comments received, comments were received from the County of Grey Planning and Development Services Department on May 18th. And they note that provided that positive comments are received from the Conservation Authority regarding the above noted natural heritage features, county planning staff have no further concerns with the subject applications. The Grey Sauble Conservation Authority provided comments on May 13th, and they say that their office generally has no objection to the subject applications as they are not anticipated to negatively impact their regulated area, natural hazard, and or significant natural heritage features. However, based on their review of the hazard features on the subject property, they recommend that the site-specific zoning bylaw includes a hazard within the proposed A1 387 zone, as outlined on the attached mapping that they provided, to include potential flooding, erosion, and slope hazard areas associated with the watercourse and their associated valleys. They also recommend that should the landowner encounter species at risk, bobolink or meadowlark, I believe, that they should contact the Ministry of Conservation, Environment, and Parks. The Municipality of Greyhounds Building Services Department provided comments on May 13th, noting no concerns. Fire and Emergency Services provided comments on April 23rd, noting no concerns. And Council and Legislative Services provided comments on April 22nd, noting no concerns. Those are the extent of the comments received thus far.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Are there any questions or comments from council to the planner? No. We'll now ask if the applicant or agent would like to make any representation on their application. Is the applicant or agent in attendance, Raylene?
Yes, Kristen Rennie, I have promoted her to panelist, so she is on this now. I have unmuted her and I've asked her to start her video, and then I will pull up her presentation.
All right. Go ahead, Kristen.
Thank you, Chair Allen. Kristen Rennie from Georgian Planning Solutions. This is my first virtual public meeting, so thank you. It's gone quite smoothly this evening, I must say, so congratulations to your team. I am the agent acting on behalf of the property owners for the submissions in front of us this evening. I'm not going to go through too much detail because Michael did a great job and so did the notice. So Raylene, if you could just jump to slide 7, I think that's where I'm going to sort of start. So as was mentioned, the purpose of the public meeting tonight is to consider an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment to help implement a proposed consent application. And I just want to give the details of the consent so you can understand where the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment came forward. So the purpose is to sever off approximately 21 hectares off the property that was noted in the notice and in Michael's staff report. And that severed portion would be added to the property to the south, which would increase the size of that property to 150 acres. And the retained parcel would have an area of 48 acres or 19 hectares. And again, as Michael mentioned, there's no new lot being created, so it really is a lot line adjustment. If you can go to the next slide, Raylene. Thank you. And this is just a visual of sort of how it works. So you can see that the frontage is on the Blue Mountain Euphrasia town line. The retained parcel is the parcel that has the current farm cluster at the front, and the back parcel is the parcel that is being severed and added to the property to the south. Okay, can you go one more, please? And I just wanted to show you this. This is the official plan mapping from the Grey Highlands. And so the reason that the line is the way that it is that it's taking the Niagara Escarpment, the lands that are designated in the Niagara Escarpment plan area, and adding them to the south to other Niagara Escarpment Commission zone or designated lands, and then keeping the agricultural parcel all together at the front of the parcel. So that's where that line came. The NEC was supportive of that type of lot line adjustment, keeping the Niagara Escarpment Commission lands together and then the agricultural lands together as well. If you could go to the next slide, please. So that's where we get to the official plan and the zoning bylaw amendments that we're requesting. And so from the official plan amendment, we're looking to add a site-specific policy to the agricultural designation, which would permit the severance along the boundary between those, the Niagara Escarpment plan area and the agricultural land use designation. And then the zoning amendment would be to implement the consent application, which I just gave you the details about, to recognize the reduced lot area of 19 hectares of the retained parcel, which is designated agriculture. And again, no new lot is being created. And in regards to the official plan amendment, we don't require an amendment at the county level simply because their policies do permit this type of lot line adjustment. And at this point, your policies within your plan do not reflect the changes within the county's official plan. With that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Kristen. Are there any questions from members of council? No? You did a great job, Kristen. No questions.
Okay, thanks. Well, I am the last one on the agenda, so.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of or opposition to this application? Raylene, is anybody wanting to support or oppose this application?
I am not seeing any hands raised.
All right. Thank you. Are there any last minute questions or comments from council? I don't see any. So as there is no further discussion, these applications will be forwarded to a future council meeting for consideration. So thank you very much for attending, Kristen.
Thank you.
And now I will declare this meeting adjourned at, we didn't quite make 7, at 7:06. Let me look at that one. Yes, 7:06 p.m. So thank you very much, everybody. I think it did go well. Hopefully next meeting we won't have 8 files to look at. So thank you very much.
Well done, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Great job, Chair and Clerk. Thank you very much.